I've just come off one of the most profound conversations so far on Conversations of Inspiration. Willard Wigan MBE, the greatest micro-sculptor there's ever been. I would say get ready with your tissues. Definitely have a notebook, because Willard and Willard's mother and what she used to say to him will stay with you forever. Some of the greatest lessons I think I probably will learn has come out of this podcast. So I'm already thinking about how many times I'm going to play it over, coming from such humble beginnings with difficulties, with neurodiversity, and actually ending up having one of the most exciting, glorious lives I think I've ever heard described. And as he said, at 64, he's actually just beginning, because even bigger is coming. What can I say? Enjoy.
Bow your head and let your eyelids close on down. Where we're going, you won't need to bring your frown.
I'm Holly Tucker, and welcome to Conversations of Inspiration. Back in 2006, I founded Not on the High Street from my kitchen table, and since then, I've gone on to launch Holly & Co. I'm the UK ambassador of creative small businesses, and I believe that having a business doing what you love is the key to a happy, fulfilled life. My dream is to help everybody start theirs. I'm here to offer advice, inspiration, wisdom, and encouragement. And in my view, the best way to do this is by sharing stories. So I've reached out to my favourite small businesses, entrepreneurs, and those who simply inspire me, and asked them to share theirs. With thanks to Dell Technologies, who've helped bring this free podcast to life. Here are my Conversations of Inspiration. Hi, Willard. I am thrilled to meet you today, because I've been a huge admirer of your work is, I don't think anyone's actually going to quite believe it. If they don't know of you, they're not going to believe what we're going to describe. So welcome to my podcast, Willard.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Holly. Pleasure and an honour.
So I just wanted to start off, because we're going to talk about your life, but you've been called the Micro-Angelo. You've broken 2 world records, and you've created the world's smallest handmade micro art in history.
That's correct.
Art that fits inside the eye of a needle or on the head of a pin. Now, I just had to say that to everybody so that they understood what we were going to be talking about and the phenomenon that is you. How are you feeling about being in your position right now in your life?
Before I start, I just wanted to correct you a little bit.
Yes.
The smallest sculpture I've ever made is inside a human hair.
You're right.
A motorbike inside a human hair, and also a sculpture of a little babe inside a human hair, which is smaller than a human embryo, which can actually fit inside a human embryo.
It's incredible. I'm getting to that part about the hair, because all last night while I was preparing for this podcast, I sat down with my son and I explained to him, you were the only person that made him put down his phone. Normally I can never get him to put down his phone. But when I described that, he said, Google it. I don't believe you. And I did. And so for everybody, you better be Googling this while we're speaking. Let's just start, because I want to go right back to the beginning, if that's okay with you, Willard. Because I know school, and we talk about school a lot on this podcast. We talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, those people who inspire us, and the collective really haven't had normal upbringings. School has never played a huge part in their lives. And for you, I know school wasn't a happy place. I read when researching you for this podcast that the learning differences you had, autism, dyslexia, weren't recognised at the time, and that school was a very difficult time and teachers broke your confidence. Can you describe that period of your life?
Well, I mean, any child, some children, not all, when you first start school, sometimes you start school with a little bit of confidence. Sometimes you have no confidence. Sometimes you have a lot of confidence. Sometimes people look forward to starting school. I look forward to starting school because I didn't know what school was what it had in store for me. I just thought school was somewhere where you went and played with toys and talked to other children and spell your name. I wasn't quite ready for what I was going to encounter, you see, because back in the 60s, it was common for teachers to humiliate children. It was almost like a sort of Oliver Twist mentality, but not quite as harsh as that, So when I started school, I just tried to fit in as much as I possibly could. I was there, but at the same time, as soon as I started school, I felt, strange because I didn't feel that I really belonged there for some reason, because one of the teachers was always trying to find a reason to humiliate me. I don't know why, but it's a fact. It really did happen. She would talk to the other children and introduce them to their first day at school. And I was just there playing with toys at first before you start to learn the academic side of things. I was playing in this sand pit and just playing around and not feeling right. It's almost as though my body was there, my mind wasn't. At first, I kind of looked forward to going to school because I thought school was somewhere where you could go and play. And then the harshness set in where, they wanted to see if you could spell your name or you could add up. And then when she found out I couldn't, that was a reason now to make me feel humiliated. So it's quite sad that I'm having to say this, but it's so true. It's unbelievable, And then she decided to tell all the other children in the class about me, telling them, because I couldn't spell my name.
I read that she would take you around the school and use you as an example of failure.
That's right. I was an exhibit of failure. Yeah, it was terrible. So when that happened, I'll tell you what that done to me. It just made me say to myself, I don't belong. So therefore, I'm not accepted. So I'm not going to talk.
Right.
So I stopped talking because I thought, if you don't accept me, you tell me that I am what you say I am. So therefore, I'll behave like what you say I am. So therefore, I'm not here. So I shut down completely. You see, as a kid, because of the autism, I couldn't really understand the condition. I didn't, because it wasn't diagnosed. I didn't know what. I knew something was wrong, but I don't know what it was. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew that something was wrong. But at the end of the day, I know the ugly duckling turns into a swan. So I remember that story.
But you used to run home, didn't you? And used to hide in the shed.
Yeah, because the humiliation was so bad because she used to have this horrible voice. Could I have your attention, children? Right. Now, I want you to pay attention to what I'm saying. If you don't listen to the teacher, you become Willard. Willard is what happens if you don't learn to listen to your teachers. And she'd hold the exercise book and say, this is what happens. Look at Willard's book. Look how disgusting it is. So all that, and you get this echoing in your head. It's like an echoing of what she's saying. So you hear it, and then you might as well just not do anything. So I just thought, okay, yeah, I'm not going to talk. You say I'm that, so I'll accept that. So therefore, I'm going to give up completely.
And no wonder you ran away and ran and hid in this, well, hid not only inside yourself, but literally hid in a shed. And you started to actually create, is this right, a sort of fantasy world, which started by, well, where your micro-sculpturing actually started was that early on. That's what I can't believe.
Well, what it was, Ollie, when the opportunity came for me to run away from school, it was the best thing I ever done because, my body was there, my mind wasn't, so I might as well leave, take it all away. See, my left leg was in school, my right leg was out, so might as well get both legs and join them.
Yeah, just join it all together. Be efficient. Have your whole body and your whole mind in one place. Yeah. But you started making homes for ants. This was your refuge. It was your way of escaping. Mm-hmm. Tell me about this, because this is how old were you roughly then? I
was 6 years old, yeah.
Crikey.
Whilst I'd run away from school, my world was insects. I'd pick up a leaf and look at the veins in the leaf and stuff like that. I was always picking up small things, little grains of sand and dirt and looking at the dirt, looking at little insects walking around. So the opportunity come for me to run away from school, which was a great feeling. I didn't live too far from the school anyway, so that was nice. And I remember running, and where I used to live, there's a nice field there and ponds that are there. I used to sit. I remember running towards this pond and sitting by it and looking into the water and seeing all the little whirly beetles and water boatmen, pond skaters. And, that was a great feeling because I found solitude. It was almost like tranquility. I was like in my own little world, Then I carried on running. I saw my house in the distance, climbed over the fence, hid in the shed. I was a little bit afraid of my mum because my mum was like the woman in Tom and Jerry, See, if my mum was the type of woman, if she threw a punch at you and it missed you, you'd get pneumonia off the draft because she could hit that hard, So I was a little bit scared of that. But, my mum was a good woman anyway, but she was a disciplinarian, She could turn a potato into a missile. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter how far away you are. Like Tom and Jerry, and she'd throw it.
What a description. What a brilliant description. But am I right in thinking you made ants shoes and hats?
Yeah.
How did you even start to, because you didn't have microscopes, you didn't have anything, so how did that even manifest itself?
Well, it manifested itself because of my dog, really. My dog, I remember playing in the garden with a dog and I bounced the ball, it went over the fence next door, and my dog was digging to try and get underneath the fence to get the ball, but as he'd done that he disturbed an ant's nest and lots of ants came out of the ground. So when you have autism, you believe all types of things. You start thinking that ants can talk. The queen ant lives in a palace. She's got a little crown on her head. And, you think that, all the other little baby ants go to school and they've got little merry-go-rounds and seesaws and swings and little hats and shoes. So my mind just went into this obsession of possession of, I've got to help the ants now because they've got nowhere to live. So I found my dad's razor blade. He used to have these scarred razor blades in his little bowl upstairs, and because in the 60s they used to leave the door open so you could go in. My mum had gone to work anyway, so I got this razor blade and I got a twig, put it into the razor blade and snapped a piece of razor blade off, so you have this shard of razor blade in my hand, you see. It would have been detrimental for a kid of 5 to do that, but I just knew I could. And then I picked up some little splinters of wood and started to slice them and cut little grooves into them, and I constructed and, built, a whole village for ants. And I found a leaf and twisted the leaf just like a cigar. It was a dead leaf twirled. So I got 4 of these leaves and twisted them, pulled fibres out of my school uniform and wrapped them up and tied up these like, they look like ice cream cones, 4 of them. And I cut out little arch windows and, made a little bridge, and that was a palace for the queen ant, So I'd found a little piece of cardboard and I punched little holes in the cardboard and wedged all these little houses in. I made a whole village for ants. And when I did that, I was so happy because I kept thinking, all the ants are going to move in and, they're going to have to pay me some rent. But, on a serious note.
You're an ant landlord.
Yeah, not really. I just thought, the ants are going to be happy now,
happy and safe.
Yeah, and then I got carried away, started making furniture, tables and chairs, little seesaws, merry-go-rounds for the ants. I got my mum's needle and punched little holes in things, and I just sort of wedged them all together. I didn't know it was a skill. I didn't think it was anything special at all, When I realised what I'd done is when one of the kids next door seen it, she looked over the fence and, and then all I heard was, wow. And I heard her say, that is the bestest. Now, somebody's just told me now that I'm the bestest. But, as a kid, the way a child would say, that's the bestest. So it's almost like this surge of pride and encouragement. And it's like, you just tell me I'm the bestest.
Probably hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, then she went out in the garden and told her mum, and she said, Mum, have a look at this, Mum, look what Willard. Well, then they wouldn't call you Willard, they call you the coloured boy, unfortunately. That's what they used to do. And, look what the coloured boy's done, look. And Mum came down the garden, her mum, and looked over the fence, and she went, wow, oh my goodness me. Terence called the son, Terence, who's a good friend of mine. So he came and had a look and he went, wow, that's amazing. And then she called her husband, Bob, and then he came and had a look and he was like, oh my God, that is amazing. And now they're all telling me I'm good. And there's the lady over the other lady over the other fence, she came round and had a look and he was like, and I could hear him saying, that's amazing. And then Now, they've made a fantastic mistake because now they're going to turn me into something possessed. They've just told me I'm good because now it's like telling a rabbit that he's got carrots for the rest of his life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, you've just told me.
You've just felt something that you had never experienced. Tell me, can I ask you something? You showed your mum, so you've got everyone looking over the fence.
Yeah.
We've got the bestest coming on and we've got this whole thing. I'm interested because, you know, she was the Tom and Jerry mum.
Yeah.
But I know that you speak about her and some of the things that she said to you about your skill was really profound, actually. Tell me about that, because she was a big inspiration for you. But she really made you realise this could be more and almost didn't let you rest on your laurels. Didn't like go, okay, that's fine. Stay at this stage. She pushed you, didn't she?
When my mother seen what I'd done, you know, after all the commotion and all the neighbours looking, my mum came home from work. She went to school to collect me and found out I wasn't there, came back home. And then she found out that I was in the garden and they could see all the neighbours looking at what I'd done. Then, you know, my mother was coming to give me some discipline. But then I got rescued by my neighbour. And then my neighbours showed her what I'd made. And my mum took this deep breath and then went quiet. And then she said, "Where'd you get that from?" I told her I made it. And she was stunned into silence for a little bit because I thought she was going to throw it in a bin or something and say, "What are you doing? You should be at school. Stop making these little things." So she took it in the house, put it down on the table and looked at me and said, "You make that?" And I said, "Yeah." She went, "Make them smaller and them get bigger." She said, "You can't read, you can't write, so you better make small things." So she's telling me now that what I've made is amazing. And she said to me, she's never seen anything like that. And she says, "That's what you're going to do." So then, now my mum told me I'm good. She gave me a little hug and a kiss. And so now it's like more energy, more.
Yeah.
My mum just told me that my sisters and my brothers came and they was all telling me I was good. And it's like, and the girl next door, she was talking, going out in the street, talking to kids. And so I got all excited. And so I got a toothpick and I carved all the Beatrix Potter characters on a toothpick. Then I showed it her. And then she went, and I showed my mum, and my mum looked at me and said, "It's too big. It's not small enough." So I remember looking at my mum, so I thought, right. So on the point of the toothpick, I carved a little bird and I showed it, and she went, "Too big." So I thought, well, why does she keep telling me that? I didn't know that the fact that she was telling me that to encourage me to go smaller, because she told me the smaller my work, the bigger my name, you know.
It was obviously not easy for you in the, you know, a way that I can't empathise with you because I've never experienced it. But it's sounding like this was a tough upbringing. But there was something that your mum, you know, she didn't tell you, you better get back to school. That is what you've got to do. She knew that you were special in the truest sense. And she basically loved you enough to say, I am going to be that person who pushes you to the best that you're going to be, which is actually a very forward-thinking way, because she was basically setting you up for life.
That's correct.
That she knew was not going to be the standard life other people might experience, that she knew that you're going to need to be different. And in that way, I've got to be that tough one who pushes you even further.
That is so correct. You've hit the nail, well, the hammer on the pinhead. That is what you call pinpoint accuracy in what my mother would do. Because my mother knew I was struggling with spelling and reading. So when she saw what I could do, she just thought, right, you know, I'm going to keep telling you to do that. I remember she said something to me that resonates in my mind. She'd say, sometimes people say lots of words and don't mean nothing. And some people say very little words and mean everything. So she say, so if I tell you to make little sculptures, they'll say much more than when somebody makes something big. So make them real small. and make them so people can't see. And you'll see how big small will become.
She had foresight. I mean, I think about you as that small child. I know that you basically spent this huge amount of time in your childhood growing in confidence, spending time carving these tiny sculptures. You must have had such patience as a child. And I remember reading a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers, and he talks about how 10,000 hours makes you become a master of what you do.
Correct.
Would you say you agree? Like basically over and over again, and she's saying smaller, smaller, smaller,
repetition.
and you've got to do it. Repetition.
Yeah.
Do you think that is what has, I mean, and we, you know, how old are you now?
I'm 64.
64, you were 5 when this started.
Yeah.
This is a lifetime.
I never stopped, Holly. You see, my mum told me, she says, that's all you can do. That is all you can do, which is not the fact now, but I can do a lot more things now. I can articulate, I can speak well. But when she told me that's, you can't do nothing else. I remember I used to tell myself in my head when I was doing something, I used to say, I'm going to operate on this little girl, and if I don't fix it, she's going to die. And I just tell myself I'm performing an operation, and I just keep on doing it. It was just like this repetition of every evening, every morning, all the time, non-stop. I just wouldn't stop because I felt as though my life depended upon it. It was almost so my life depends on this.
Yeah.
So because I lost me, and then I found me again, but I found me again in the right place. Whereas I decided to bring the small world into the big world because we all start small. Everything starts small. We're made up of atoms anyway. And before we were born, we're like little, you know, fetuses inside an embryo. You know, there's antibodies inside our bodies. You know, look at the world now. You got these microchips, all this, you know, it's micro technology.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like if somebody doesn't say anything, we automatically think they've got nothing to say. So my inspiration is underestimation, because underestimation is a great inspiration. Because if you look at an ant small in stature but immense in strength, the strongest animal on the planet, pound for pound. A bee sting is tiny, but it really hurts.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, my mum would say things that were just like, my dad was complaining about some lamb once because she made him some lamb and she made it quite bland. She didn't make it too spicy. And my dad was complaining and saying, I don't like what you've done. I don't like what you've done. And don't make my lamb like this. Don't make my lamb like this. And arguing. And my mum said, if you carry on, you're going to have to remind me to love you.
She's had such an influence already on me, and we've only been a few minutes in this podcast. But I mean, so what it must have been to grow up with her. So listen, I'm curious to know whether you think that your autism and dyslexia have in a way become your USP, your unique selling point. Because I say this because I mentioned a lot of founders, and I would say the majority that I interview have had non-conventional starts, not being great at school, a huge percentage of them dyslexic. I talked to a few of my friends who have neurodiverse children, worried about their future because, of course, the school is a very cookie-cutter establishment, you know. I'm interested to know if you found these conditions basically are your superpowers.
Autism is a blessing in disguise, you see. I call it a learning difference. I don't see it as an obstacle. I see it as an enhancement, you know, because it's like my mum would say to me, the diamond is in the dustbin. That's what she used to say. And I say, what do you mean by that? She'd say, because society, they have a habit of throwing the best away until somebody uncovers it and realises they threw a diamond away
instead.
And then they empty the bin and see that there's a diamond, you see, because I know how things work, because sometimes the best comes from less or from where you least expect. You see what I mean? You may see something and then go past it.
Yeah.
And then go back and have a look and go, oh my God, I didn't know that was there. I didn't expect to see that there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, if you can go into some of the remote parts of Brazil, into like the places where there's lots of trouble and whatever. And if you go in there and seek it out, you'll see the real diamond, because they are from deprived areas. And, you know, you'll see people who have been hidden away, and then all of a sudden they've been uncovered, and you go, where I didn't know you. Where are you from? Oh, I'm from the Provellos. I'm from the Provellos. It's supposed to be terrible there. Yes, but the diamond's in the dustbin. You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
I've seen people that are been underestimated. You see what I mean? If you look at a Shaolin monk, he's very small, but he's an immense fighter. You see what I mean? It's like, there's an old saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. So we're always trying to accept something because we can see it. But what about something you can't see? There's a saying, just because you can't see something doesn't mean it's not there. So, you know, that depicts me for who I am. I am a testimony of what can be achieved from the word nothing. The word nothing doesn't exist because there's always something. You can't say nothing. If you go into an empty room and if you say to someone, what's in that room? Oh, nothing. Of course there's something in there. There's lots of little insects in there. There's Mrs. Dustmite and all the family are probably in there. They're probably having a little party under the carpet, you know what I mean?
Willard, tell me, for parents that might be listening and maybe have children whose brains are wired differently, what would you say to them about embracing the gift?
Encouragement, uncovering it and see what's there, you see, because sometimes you have to have a look, you see. You have to find out who they really are. And sometimes people go into themselves. My mum would say to me, you are an invisible key that can't be seen, but you can open a door bigger than Mount Everest with a tiny key. So what it is, you have to persevere and encourage that child. If that child has a behaviour pattern and you can detect that they have a form of autism, the ugly duckling will turn into a swan. But you, as a parent, have to sit on the egg and then let the talent emerge into the glory. You see what I mean?
I do, actually. I do. I mean, I was reading something you wrote. You said, because I wanted to get people to understand that there are people out there with learning differences who have extreme, miraculous, and inexplicable gifts.
That's correct. That's correct.
And I just thought, this is just something that, you know, we as a society, I think you would agree, has moved on a lot, Willard, since you were a child.
Okay, during the 60s, right, there was a lot of ignorance, you see. They used to put dunce hats on people's heads.
Yeah.
Call them dunces. Now, the listeners who are listening to this, you'll be able to familiarise yourself with me, because you are people who have made it really big in business. You've become the swan from the ugly duckling. You have your massive chain of solicitors. You're probably an architect, become fashion designers, that become all types of greatness. And it emerges from somewhere they can't explain where it's come from. How do you manage to do that? Did you go to college? Did you go to university? No, I just did it. But I remember you at school and you couldn't spell, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. That's underestimation, you see. And what it is, it's almost as though you have to defend yourself. It's like a defense system, with having to find something to prove to people that you are not what they think you are. You're more than that. You find this extreme ability because you can talk and talk and talk. That don't work. So you have to show them what you're capable of. You can get revenge by success.
Yes.
And sometimes people I have got a qualification in, I wouldn't say revenge, in success. I have a qualification in success.
I know. A qualification in revenge. No, I mean success. It's like that in brackets, just a little bit of, Yeah, because so for everybody who underestimated me, I am now here.
That's right. I'm here. You know what I mean? I'm the diamond that was in the dustbin. Now, the facets on my diamond is not like any other diamond in the world because my mother cut it. So I am now shining, but at the same time, I want to shine on other children so that they can see that they're also a diamond that's in the dustbin ready to come out because of the underestimation of humanity. Humanity always underestimate. I mean, I was listening to Tyson Fury and he went through so much. He went through mental health. He was down, but he emerged from a dark place where no one expected him to come back from, and he became world champion. And and Tyson Fury is a great inspiration to anyone who feels they can't achieve in life.
Yeah.
When someone, a voice in their head's telling them to commit suicide, and then all of a sudden they say no. So what I'm trying to say to you is autism, right, can make people feel as though they don't exist, they're not worthy, that there's no significance about them, so they're just a leaf in a cul-de-sac. So your leaf being blown around in a cul-de-sac, so there's no direction. Or, it's like a quicksand of despair, so you're sinking, but there's nothing to grab onto to pull yourself up.
We're working with our partners at Dell Technologies to empower small businesses across the UK with the tools and knowledge they need to thrive. Every week, we bring you the Small Business Pharmacy Live to help you navigate your business journey, covering a huge range of topics. Here I am talking to Hannah Russell, co-founder of Mags Creative and the co-host, about why podcasts are a fundamental part of our future.
In your expert opinion, if we just start from the beginning, I mentioned about the stats, but outside of that, why are podcasts part of our future and quite an important part of our future?
I think you can look at it from 2 points of view. So I think from a listener point of view, we've been experiencing screen fatigue. So what was happening 3 years ago, I think, was the real rumblings of people saying, you know what, I have looked at a screen for a long time. And there was this kind of starting of a movement, I think, of thinking, what's behind it all? What's behind the really perfect Insta posed kind of things? And people starting to talk about Insta reality and the shots of the messy houses behind the very beautiful looking houses, which I won't show you mine today because I'm actually basically stood in a cupboard. But anyway, I think that was sort of starting 3 years ago. And I think the point we're at now is that people are really hungry for authenticity and really hungry for things that genuinely connect people. So when you're looking at an Instagram picture or you're scrolling or you're doing your work and you're on Zoom and you see a fraction of people's lives, when you listen to a podcast, you genuinely listen to what that person has to say because you're not distracted really by what they look like.
For the latest lessons, advice and insights, join me every Wednesday at midday live on my Instagram. You can also visit holly.co/hub for my business advice hub, a free online resource thanks to Dell Technologies filled with content from myself and some of our small business community, sharing lessons from our journeys to help you navigate yours. And with a continued commitment to empower you, every week Dell are giving away one tech in a box. For a chance to win a brand new XPS laptop and a whole host of other goodies, head to holly.co/get involved with thanks to Dell Technologies. Now, let's get back to our conversation of inspiration. You've heard this probably so many times, but Willard, you're probably one of the most articulate voices I've had on this podcast.
Thank you very much,
I'm
Holly.
actually moved to tears already, and normally I cry at the end of these things, Willard. Normally not in the middle, but you have a way, and I know everyone listening, they've got really creative brains who are listening, and you are describing the analogies you're using. I am just like literally full already, and we've got some more of this podcast to go. But I just wanted to say that to you. Like, I've never interviewed anybody like you.
Thank you, Holly. I really appreciate that.
So I also, I was thinking about this, and, I was remembering reading about Greta Thunberg, and she said, I have Asperger's, and that means I'm sometimes a bit different from the norm. And given the right circumstances, being different is a superpower. And it's really a brilliant, brilliant lesson for all of us to understand more about who we are, how we tick, finding our diamond. Like you said, and I think I'll never forget this, the diamond in the dustbin. But tell me, what was the moment for you? Because I know you were creating sculptures throughout your 20s whilst working. You did lots of different jobs, none of them which gave you that sense of purpose that you felt during your sculptures. But what was that turning point and change for you?
Well, see, the turning point for me was I had something to prove, you see. Having a learning differences, you believe that when you leave school, the only thing you can do is work in a factory. So all I thought about was, when I leave school, I'll work in a factory, but I'll earn some money. I'm still alive. I was drilling holes in bits of metal, throwing them in a container. They call it piecework. The more you do, the more you earn, So one thing I thought about was I thought, well, number one, I'm alive. Number two, I have a dog, which I like the dog. I have a dog. And number three, there's lots of insects in the garden that I can look at. Number four, my mum makes nice apple crumble. Right. So I was happy with those simple things.
Yeah.
And I can listen to some music because I like Tamla Motown. I was into the Motown stuff. And I was like, oh, yeah, I could do that. And also, and the main one, I have a skill to sculpt. So when I first worked in the factory, when I first left school with no qualifications, I remember the teacher says to me, oh, you can empty my bin anytime, Willard. Like that. So I never said anything at all. I'll never forget the teacher that said that. Won't mention any names, but I never said anything at all, you see, because the grain of sand was going to be thrown into the sea and a tidal wave of success was going to come from that grain of sand. So I thought, okay.
Yeah, I'll just show you.
I ain't saying a word, right? So I knew I couldn't go to university or college because I couldn't spell, couldn't write. So I am now working in a factory. And I used to earn money and, of course, wages, give my mother housekeeping money. And my mother she was happy that I was doing something. I wasn't out on the streets running riot, doing anything like that. Even though where I live, people used to fight a lot. Kids used to fight a lot. It's part of their DNA, In the black country, people used to fight. They used to like fighting. Kids used to look at your socks and say, yeah, I've got red socks on. Do you want to scrap? If you had red socks on, they'd have a fight with you. Wanted a fight. If you had green socks on, say, oh, you got green socks. Well, I got red socks. Why you got green socks on? Want a fight? And then have a fight and shake hands afterwards, and you become best of friends. Oh, God. You know what I mean? You haven't got the same socks as me. So we get on, you know what I mean? Anyone listening to this podcast will be familiar with what I'm trying to say, because that's what they used to do. So me as a kid growing up, I had some good friends who used to hang out. But when I showed them what I could do, they'd be like, oh, wow. And I used to carve little things and show them, look at that, look at that. And they'd be like, their eyes would be popping open, and they'd go and tell their friends that they will have a look. And then they said to me, one guy says, yeah, I'm going to be famous, yeah, I am. And I said, my mum told me that. And I remember this girl, my first girlfriend, I showed it her, and she started to cry. She said, how did you make that? That's busting. That's brilliant. That is, you're great. I said, you're going to be greater when you get older. And I'm like, because she's an attractive girl, you see, so I thought she told me I'm going to be great. And I was really happy, you know, skipping down the road with a sweet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She told me. So that was a great encouragement, you see. So I used to make things for her, you know, and give it, you know. But so I was finding me. I was on a journey. As kids, we'd go to clubs and dance, you know, because all I cared about was being alive.
Yeah.
I'm alive, that's it. So I can't read, but I'm alive. My mother makes nice apple crumble, I'm good. I'm happy. So,
can I ask, one of your sculptures, though, so not only was your girlfriend very impressed with you, but also so was the Birmingham Mail, because they picked up, didn't they, your Adam and Eve on a cocktail stick?
yeah, well, I can fast forward, you know, my journey a little bit and get to the stage where I said to myself, when my mother told me, she said, I reached age, after going through my teenage years and having a dance and, you know, and going to clubs and discos and all that stuff with my afro and, you know, dancing to like Chavaras, Heaven Must Be Missing an Angel and, you know, all those songs and Sounds of Philadelphia and all that stuff. So, you know, I got past that stage and I became a dancer because I was the first robotic dancer in the whole of the UK, you know.
Oh, really? You were doing all that? The listeners can't see, but I am actually looking at the first robotic dancer dancing.
Yeah. And I was body popping like 1976 and all that, you know. I was doing all that stuff. I used to watch Soul Train and I became known for my dancing, you know. And I, you know, people I started dancing for money. I was making money, you know. And my mum says, how long are you going to dance for? And I says, but what you make will dance so much longer. So don't dance no more. Show the world what you can do.
Gosh, this woman was wise.
So I thought, okay. So I decided one day that I'm going to have to do something about it. So I decided to go for a walk into the city centre of Birmingham. And by the time I'd left home then, you see, I was living in Birmingham. So I honoured my mother. I said to my mother, I'm going to honour your words. I'm going to do something. So I walked into the city centre of Birmingham just for a walk. And I walked down Corporation Street. It's in Birmingham. And across the road from there, there's a law courts. And then there's on the other side of the road, there was a shop called Pond's Tools. And it was a shop that sold all types of DIY and wood carving tools and drills and, you know, chainsaws and just everything that people need. So I walked in and there was a bench there. And on the top of the bench, there was a block of wood. The wood carving tools all the way around this piece of wood. So I kept staring at this block of wood and this gentleman come round the corner by the name of Mr. Pond, who we became good friends. And he went, hello, dear boy. You saw the voice like that. Hello, dear boy. And all right. He says, why do you keep staring at that bit of wood? And I went, because I can see William Shakespeare's head. Oh, really? I said, yeah. Are you a wood carver? I said, I'm not a wood carver, but I can certainly carve that piece of wood. And I went, let me carve something on that piece of wood. Let me do a carving on that piece of wood. And he went, well, I don't know who you are, you know. What's your name? I said, my name's Willard Wigan. He went, well, I've never heard of you. I don't know who you are. I mean, you know, it's a good suggestion, but do you have a portfolio? And I said, my name's Willard Wigan, and if you let me carve that piece of wood, you'll know who I am when I finish it.
I love this.
And then he went, Mr. Pond, God bless his soul, he's not around now. And then he went, I don't know what you do, eh? And I went, in my pocket, had a carving of all the Beatrix Potter characters carved on a toothpick, an updated version, more detailed. I showed it to him. He went, bloody hell. Oh, my God. That word comes out a lot. Then he called his wife, Kay, come and have a look at this. And Kay came and had a look. And Kay went, oh, my goodness. And she called somebody else and some of the other staff. Come on, have a look at this. All I could hear was, oh my God. And then he gave me back and he went, shut one eye. Did you really do that, Willard? And I said, yes. And he went, how do I know you did it? And I went, give me a scalpel blade. And he went, gave me, and I said, I've got a splinter of wood here. And I carved a little, and he went, oh. And I said, well, okay, let me carve Shakespeare on that piece of wood, and I will bring endorsement to the tools, and I will become an artist in residence for 2 weeks, promoting your tools and promoting your shop. And the law courts are over the road. People can come past and see this piece of wood turn into a shape of Shakespeare. And he went, well, that's a good idea. When do you want to start? And it's about 10 o'clock. And I says, now. Let's do it now. And he went, but it's not promoted or anything. I mean, I said, look, forget about the promotion. There's no time like the present. Put that bench outside, put the wood carving tools outside, give me the mallet and the chisels and watch. And his wife said, let him do it, because that piece of wood, I'm sick of the sight of it. I've been looking at it for about 2 years. I'm sick of it. Let him do it. And my mum used to say one thing to me, women rule the world, men think they do. So, yeah, I'll testify to that. Yes, women rule the world, men think they do. So in the end, Mr. Pod went, well, I mean, see, these tools cost money, you know. And I went, by the time I finish with the Shakespeare, these tools will be easy to afford, because somebody's going to buy this piece of wood when they see what I do with it. And he went, well, go on then. I said, give me some overalls. He gave me some overalls. And I said, watch. I started chipping away. Then all of a sudden people started walking past the shop, gathering around. Oh, that's fantastic. We haven't seen anything like that. About time we saw something like this. Nice to see a bit of activity and people creating something. That's really nice. Nice bit of craft going on. What are you making? I said, I can't tell you till I've finished. Cut a long story short, that 4 hours or so, a shape started to come, because I wanted to make it last, you see, so
yes.
I was chipping away. Then all of a sudden, this woman came across the road and says, is that William? It looks a bit like William Shakespeare to me. And I says, yeah, it is. And she says, if it is, can I commission it? I says, it is Shakespeare, but I need to see what it looks like when it's finished. And I says, how much? I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like because I haven't seen it, but it looks like it's going to be quite spectacular. And I says, yeah. Okay. So I carried on for another three hours, chipping away. I mean, the next day, sorry, she come back every now. And she says, wow, I'd like to commission that. How much? Oh, 1,500. Oh, no problem. I shall write you a cheque.
Chip.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, wow, Mr. Pardon. I said, Dave. Okay, and he went, kind of wiped his eyes away a little bit of a teardrop. And he says, you are incredible. And I says, so that was like, more. Thank you so much. So now, you see what it is? People are telling me I'm good now. Then all of a sudden, a gentleman came down the road to be a journalist. And he says, my name is Dave Burner. I'm a journalist. I would like to do a story on you. Because people keep coming up and telling me about this man doing some wood carving. And I'm like, yeah. So how did you start? This is amazing. It's nice to see this type of thing going on. And I'm like, yeah, okay, if you want a story, I'd definitely participate in that. And he says, when did you start? What did you start doing? Showed him Adam and Eve on a toothpick. And he was like, oh, wow. Told them the whole story, went in the papers. Then I had calls, people wanted me to commission me to make little toothpick stuff. And
how old were you at that point?
at the time, I was about 28. at the time because
Right, yeah.
the jigsaw puzzle was there, but there was just that missing bit. And the jigsaw puzzle, the bit that's supposed to go in the middle was me. So I put me in the middle and completed the jigsaw puzzle, you see.
Yeah.
So then people started to contact me. Oh, could you carve me this? Could you carve me that? Could you do this? Then I had a call from a lady from the centre called the Arcadian Centre in Birmingham, which is like a new complex. They had empty shops, and she said, oh, we have empty shops here, and we'd like you to be artists in residence. Would you like that? And I said, oh, yeah, that'd be nice. She says, OK, come and have a look at the shop then. It was very American the way she said it. She went, yeah, come and have a look at the shop. Do you want to go in? Let's do it now. And I'm like,
brilliant.
Really? She said, yeah, just do it. Get everything in. Get it all in. Get all your work in there, and let's get a bench, do some wood carvings, and, and we'll do some promotion about you. We'll do it. So Mr. Pond helped make a bench for me, took it down to the Arcadian Centre. Mr. Pond says, go and show the world what you can do. So now I'm in this shop now. I knew a gentleman by the name of Johnny Glover who worked at Sutton Cofield Park. He was a tree surgeon. So I went to him, and a friend of mine took me up there with a van, and I got lots of wood, elm, lime, oak, walnut. So I had these big chunks of wood. I was carving things away, carving ballet shoes and carving Florence Nightingale, and people coming in and saying, oh, could you carve my dog? Could you carve my cat? Could you carve...
Goodness.
I became a wood carver. And I said to my mum, Mum, look, Mum, look what I'm doing now. My mum went, too big. I'm not interested. I said, Mum, look, I'm earning some money. And I'd give my mum some money. She'd just go, stuff it down her bra. Thank you. But it's too big. And I'm like, I won't say anything again. So I went back. At the time, I didn't have any furniture in my flat. I was living in a flat like City Road in Birmingham. So then, all of a sudden, people started talking about me. And then before I knew it, I wanted to get some more wood, so I went to Licky Hills, and I heard someone tapping away. And I looked, and I saw this man doing a big wood carving. And I went, that's good, that is. Fantastic. He says, oh, I'm just carving this. The council commissioned me to do this, called Spirit of the Woods. And he said, oh, it's fantastic. He says, I'll do a bit of that. And he says, what's your name? I says, my name's Willard Wigan. He went, I read about you. I read about you in the newspaper. And then I says, you know something, Graham, if me and you collaborated together, we could make something really happen. His name's Graham Jones, wood carver. Amazing. So me and him got together. We collaborated together. We set up a wood carving business. Bang! It became massive. BBC came to film us. At the time, I never really showed him too much of the little stuff. And that was the ugly duckling, ready to emerge into the swan. It was just waiting for that moment. Right. Then all of a sudden, this gentleman came in, and at the time, Edward and Sophie was getting married, and it was David Burner from Cater's News came in and says, Edward and Sophie are getting married. Could you make something to commemorate the wedding? And I says, yeah, I can do that. So I got a match, and I carved Edward and Sophie on a match, and I called it the perfect match.
Genius.
So that went out in all the papers. Went out in The Guardian, The Sun, The Mirror, and The Guardian called me the Micro-Angelo, and then bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
So it was in The Sun. Johnny Vaughan rang me up, and they contacted me. They sent their researchers to meet me and said, they want you on the Big Breakfast Show. I'm like, wow. It was like the grain of sand was thrown into the sea, the tidal wave was coming. So then, before I knew it, I'm on the Big Breakfast Show. They sent a limousine to pick me up, take me down the Big Breakfast Show. I met Johnny Vaughan. Johnny Vaughan says, I read your story in The Sun. This is amazing, the most fascinating thing I've ever seen. I want to know more about you. Anyway, I'll talk to the other guests, and then I'll come back to you. And then he came back again. He says, how did you start? Just in the green room. And I said, I started making smaller stuff than this. And I said, like what? And I showed him the Statue of Liberty in the eye of a needle. And he was eating something at the time, and he went, and it came out his mouth, and excuse me, I can't wait till you get on the show and talk about it. So I got on the show, and I gave him a story about my life and stuff like that. And then he says, that sculpture that you did of Edward and Sophie, that's amazing. I showed it them. I think it was given to them, or I don't know where that went. And then I said, but Johnny, that is not my smallest stuff. Because what I'd done, I kept quiet, and I bought a microscope, the ugly duckling, was turning into the Swan. So then I took out the Statue of Liberty in the eye of a needle. Wow, the whole place went crazy. You know, in the Big Breakfast Show, there's like, this is amazing. Then I had a call, after the show, I had a call from a gentleman in Jersey by the name of Alan Devey, a multi-millionaire. And I had another guy by the name of Russell Merridew and Mike Watts from Bath. And listen to this, they're about to open an exhibition in the city of Bath called the Impossible Micro World.
No.
That's correct. They were going to exhibit a guy from Spain by the name of Manuelusa, who makes small sculptures. You know, I'm not the only micro artist in the world, of course I'm not. They collaborated, me and him, together. So what they'd done, he flew me over to Jersey, to Montpellier, went to his house, great big beautiful house, swimming pool, beautiful crystal chandeliers, and I'm looking around, and he shook my hand, he says, Willard, I just couldn't wait to meet you. I'm going to invest £1 million in you to open this exhibition called Impossible Micro World. So to cut the story short, they got this building in Monmouth Street, the city of Bath, opposite the Theatre Royal, and they gutted it all out and made it really nice. They bought lots of microscopes and magnifying lenses and called it the Impossible Micro World. And it opened up and it became a massive success. The opening day, Lionel Blair came to open it because Lionel Blair loved the miniatures, you see. So I met up with Lionel Blair and he's like, oh, darling, your work is so fascinating. It's like almost like some kind of fantasy, unbelievable, darling, you know, that stuff. I don't believe how this can be done. And it was a great feeling, Lionel Blair, and, you know, and it was like, here I am. And then it won Specialist Museum of the Year. Lots of people started to come through and I started to talk to them about the work and stuff and how I did it and all that. And I was selling brochures, I was signing brochures. And then before I knew it, I had an offer to go to Covent Garden. I did an exhibition with John Snook, Mr. Snook, they called him. They had a shop called Snook's City of Bath, like a toy shop that sold wooden toys, traditional wooden toys. And we did that at Covent Garden and that became massive, you know. And then I had more newspapers came, The Sun, The Guardian. Then I had Richard and Judy called me because I did a bit in The Observer. Then I had a call from Richard and Judy. I wanted to go on the show and I was on the Richard and Judy show. And then I said to my mum, you know, my mum looked at me and said, I told you.
Yeah. Oh, my.
So then, after that, more things kept coming. Gory Honeyford show. I was on Blue Peter. And it was like the world was seeing just how big a grain of sand is. Just how big it is. And then the glory came. And then all of a sudden, David Lloyd came along and decided to invest a lot of money. 11 million.
Wow.
He said, I want to tour you to America. I started touring the UK first. And then things started happening. My mum had passed away, but life goes on. So I carried on, but I still remember everything. And then, before I knew it, I had email letters from the Queen.
You've got some serious fans, haven't you?
Then wanting to honour me with an MBE.
Yeah.
Thinking,
yes, your MBE,
So now I'm like honoured with an MBE. So I remember when I met up with David Lloyd, I signed a contract with him. We did some great stuff together. And I wasn't thinking about the money. I didn't care about the money. It was what I was achieving through my skill. I wasn't thinking about that. Because money's not my God. I wasn't thinking. My life started to change completely. And then I remember going to Buckingham Palace for the first time, and you see the gates and the red carpet. I looked through the gates, I saw Rod Stewart and Penny Lancaster and Ricky Hatton and quite a few stars. I remember walking down the red carpet and I said to that teacher in my head, thank you very much, because I am now a product of what you created. You made me succeed. Because you told me I was nothing, so here I am today. So through your negative thoughts, I've become the diamond. And the diamond is a lot bigger than the one that was found in the dustbin. Because I am now the greatest micro artist of all time. And when I met Prince Charles, Prince Charles said to me, I find this very difficult to comprehend. How does one make something so small that's touched so many people in the world? Your work is incredible. And shook my hand for a long time. My hands has been shook like that. Then after that, then I had another letter from an anonymous person who commissioned me to do, during the Diamond Jubilee, for me to make a crown for the Queen. So I made a microscopic crown in 24 karat gold, constructed and built it in, made little diamonds and little jewels on a pinhead. And I got a letter from the Queen sent to Buckingham Palace saying I was going to make this crown. The Queen said, I will be delighted to receive something so small and so beautiful.
Wow.
And then I was invited to Buckingham Palace to meet the Queen with a microscope, with a pinhead, and on top of that pinhead was the carnation crown. And I remember walking through the courtyard into the reception area and met the Queen's secretary. She said, Majesty will be out in a minute. Her Majesty came, looked at it, looked through the microscope and said, I've never had something so small that was so beautiful. Thank you very much. How does one make something so small? And I told her a little bit about it, and then she had to go. And then I walked off, and I says, if this is a dream, don't wake me up. If this is a dream, I even spoke to my alarm clock. If it's a dream, don't go off. What happened to me then was I was now showing the world how big nothing became. And then I became the greatest micro-artist of all time. Then I had a program all about me called The World's Tiniest Masterpiece, which that won an award. And I was on stage talking about my life and what made me do it. And I'm now elevated so much, but at the same time, I'm very humble.
Yeah.
And I'm here to inspire children who come from the same background. Now, me and Sandy Toxteth are going to be doing a program on TV called The Big Tiny Challenge. People that make dolls' houses, there's 10 contestants and dolls' furniture and all little things like that.
Oh, amazing.
So I'm going to be the judge, you see.
Oh, how incredible.
I'm going to be the judge. So I'm going away to Exeter for 16 days to rehearse, to be filmed, and I'm going to be the judge on the panel. So if someone makes a little tiny little house, doll's house and furniture, I'd probably say to them, if I was one of the borrowers, I think I'd move into that house. So I think your work is tremendous.
It's just going to be unbelievable.
Yeah. So my world has now changed completely.
I'm thinking that everyone has heard this story, and literally whatever they're doing, normally lots of people work and create while listening to this podcast. So they're in their work studios or things. And I think everyone's just down their tools just now because they can't cope with this story. I've read that you go into almost like a meditative state when you're creating what you create, because there is such a skill that I think we're all trying to get our heads around actually how you do it. I know that some of your work can take you up to 7 weeks, that you actually have to calm your body down. Am I right in saying that you were making Alice in Wonderland and you inhaled her?
That's correct. I inhaled Alice. That is a true story.
Alice, because I don't think anyone on the planet's ever said that. But you can say that. But you inhaled her because basically it's actually a whole body experience that goes on as you create this. So can you just tell us, how do you actually do this? Is it with surgical blades? How do you actually create your masterpieces? In order to create the sculptures, you have to make the tools, because you can't buy tools small enough to do it. Right. So what I do, I have a friend like Mr. Meeks. He's a clockmaker and jewellery stuff. He does all types of stuff. And he has got all these little diamonds. And he gives me stuff if I need stuff. And I put the diamonds on a little anvil and I hit it with a hammer, bang. And underneath the microscope, I brush them off onto a little black card. And then I can seek out the sharpest piece. They look like little Stone Age flints, but they're very sharp. Now, I have to attach them into the end of a very small hypodermic needle. A friend of mine is a surgeon. So he gave me these very tiny needles, and I put them into the point,
and I squeeze the end together just to hold them in place. So it's like a microscopic scalpel blade.
My goodness.
So I cut the needle off and push that into the end of a toothpick. And so I've got an handle to hold, and I start slicing very gently. So what I did, for instance, the Last Supper, how I made that, I found a nylon tag. You know when you buy a coat, you get that nylon tag, pull the piece of that off. And then I can see them. I didn't need a photograph. I saw the Leonardo da Vinci's version of the Last Supper. So what I did, I started in the middle, and I carved this silhouette of Jesus out in the middle. So it's transparent. So I'm cutting, slicing away. It's like peeling a carrot.
Right.
There's little bits of coming off, nylon's coming off. I'm cutting it and removing it. And then next to it, I'd carved all the rest of the disciples, cutting away. And I did a lady near Jesus, because as far as I'm concerned, there is a lady in the Last Supper. So I carved the shape of a lady. So you've got this transparent figure, and they're all like a little block of nylon, and the tablecloth's there, so it's been sliced and pulled away. So you slice the nylon and separate it. So what you're doing, you're cutting and manipulating and twisting. And so by the time I'd finished, it took me about 7-8 weeks, sometimes longer. Sometimes I work on 6 at a time for about 9 weeks, 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day. I'll just keep going, turn into a zombie at times. You may see my eyes looking a bit tired because I'm working on Pied Piper. I'm going to put 22 children in the eye of a needle and the Pied Piper playing a flute. Right? But they're all going to be diverse, all different colours. So with the Last Supper, once I've done the shape, I get an eyelash, and I'm working between my heartbeat, because you have to, because your pulse is jumping. So you have 1.5 seconds to move. So each time I'm cutting away, I'm holding my breath and I'm working between the beats. So I put myself in almost an intensive concentration, almost like a meditative state. Because if you breathe, it's going to go wrong. So what I do, I take an eyelash as a paintbrush, pluck an eyelash out, and I use that eyelash as a paintbrush, and I start to paint. So you can't stroke, you have to keep touching, dabbing, because surface tension of the paint can make the heads look bigger. And if I'm not careful, Jesus' head can look like Humpty Dumpty. Because the paint, it's like a surface tension. It goes, external forces start to interfere with you, because you're on this molecular level. You're getting static electricity, all types of stuff. So when you paint Jesus' face from the front, you go to paint it from the back. If you're not careful, the paint from the back will move around to the front, and it'll look completely like somebody else. And each sculpture, if you notice in the Last Supper, they're all close together.
Yeah.
So if I'm painting Jesus and he's got a blue top on, and then next to him I've got to paint, say, Judas or whatever, if my pulse twitches, and it'll go over, and then the paint will paint Judas completely different. And then when you get this smudge of when you have a microscopic mistake, you can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, the external forces, and it's a very big, small problem indeed.
It's a very big, small problem. It sounds like I'm stressing just even hearing this, because I'm thinking, I don't even know. I think, what's the smallest thing I've ever done? I mean, I just literally am not, I can't do small things. So I'm just a very big person. So when you're talking to me, I'm just almost thinking, I have not a clue how it happens. And I now really understand this. You talk about that process. You talk about the 16 hours a day, 9 weeks, what you're doing.
Several at a time. If I work on one, it'll drive me mad. So I have to work on lots of them. I work like my life depends upon it. I work like I have to save somebody's life. I don't like doing the work. I don't enjoy it, but I love it when it's finished, because I love to see the reaction on people's faces. So that's my pleasure, is when it's finished.
And that is your reward for what you've put in. What you do now is worth a lot of money. And thank goodness it is. You've now spent, we've started this story when you were 5 years old, and you're in your 60s now. This is a lifetime spent perfecting something that really is just extraordinary. And as I said, I've never interviewed anybody like yourself. And, some of your pieces go for 100,000 plus. And this is of course, what it's worth. I was reading an article and you said, well, this is how it works. Say your husband is a multimillionaire who's seen it all and owns a huge yacht and everything money can buy. And then one day you call me and you say, can you do a sculpture made of gold of my husband standing on his yacht and set it into a tiny diamond on the head of a pin? And then at his birthday party, in front of 500 guests, you present it to him under a microscope inside a case with velvet curtains. And he says, what's that? And you say, it's you standing on a yacht. And the wow factor is through the roof. People with money want to say, I have something so small, you'll not believe it.
Here's an example. Here's an example, Holly. If I said to you, if it is your birthday, and, you know, you are financially successful, and I said, it's your birthday, and then somebody brought you a box, a gold box, and inside the gold box was some fairies, and the box was about that big, and there's like some little fairies inside the box, like Pandora's box, but it wasn't the bad stuff inside. There were fairies and butterflies, and so you give you that box, and you go, oh, thank you, and then you say, Holly, come over here, and then you say what? And there's a microscope. And then you look through the microscope and then you see the same box again in the eye of a needle with fairies flying around it or sitting on the top of the needle, on the outside of the eye of the needle, and some fairies holding hands doing ringa roses inside the needle. And they've got wings and they've got faces, they've got smiles on their faces. Which one's bigger?
I'm almost like speechless when you speak.
Because that tiny little thing is much bigger than anything you would ever have in your whole life.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? That's where underestimation comes in. Never, ever underestimate something that you can't see. And that's what it is. So when they see it, and it's beautifully presented, and the box is made of gold, and there's like a gilded box and little flowers coming off the box, and it's pure gold, 24 karat gold. That big one doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't matter.
Tell me, I want to ask you, before we come to the end of this podcast, you know, people have been just taken on an emotional journey listening to your story, and there is so many things. People are going to replay it because the wisdom that has come from yourself, even recalling all of this, your mother's words, which have blown me away, the few words, but the powerful words. Mm-hmm. When you think about your life and what you're doing, what would you say to that teacher, you know, that past? I mean, I want to ask, does she know who you are now? Sorry, it was the revenge bit that you said. I was like, I really hope she read the papers during that time. But what do you think about that when she sees where you, or when we all have situations, don't we? I think actually sometimes revenge or whatever that motivation is quite a positive thing. You know, I've had it in my life, absolutely. It's pushed me forward when I wanted to give up. When you think about her looking at you, what does it make you feel?
Well, if I could be a little voice in her ear when I was young, I would say to her, you've made a mistake. You've just thrown the diamond into the dustbin and it's going to come back to haunt you. You're going to be like looking into the mirror, and what you did bad is going to reflect back on you.
How brilliantly summed up.
Because my name is Willard Wigan, the greatest micro-artist of all time.
Oh, I hope everyone listening, whoever your teacher or the person who doubted you or the ex-husbands or the people who harmed you or whoever those people are, I really hope we're all listening to Willard, because, you know, that is it. It's for us to prove the diamond that we are. And I've just enjoyed every second of this conversation. I use the analogy to those who I interview that the journey that we're on, whether we're building a business, building a brand, is like an epic roller coaster. You know, we have these huge highs, but we have so many lows that we don't often, speak about. Can you tell me, if you had to describe your biggest low so far on this journey, what it would be?
Well, the biggest low was losing myself. I couldn't find me. My mum used to say something to me: if you want something bad enough, you can get it. My mum used to say to me, if I saw something that I wanted, I saw this girl walking across the road and I says, oh, I like her, I want her. My mum said, never want somebody who you want somebody who wants you. So I made people want me through what I did. My autism taught me one lesson: people want to see how small and how dynamic my work is. And the tenacity that I have has enabled me to become who I've become. I have delivered a message to the whole world. It's a small message with the biggest impact. The key that you couldn't see, that's made of gold, has opened the biggest door in the world. So my mother would always say that to me all the time. And she would say, be the best person you can, be the kindest person you can. Just make sure what you have, the message you have, deliver it to people, adults and children alike. There's a saying in Rocky: when you get knocked down, being knocked, like Tyson Fury got knocked down by Deontay Wilder, but Tyson Fury got back up.
It's the getting back up, isn't it?
It's what you do when you get back up. And when you get back up, then you show the world what it's like when you get back up when you've been knocked down. You know what I mean? And sometimes people will want you when they see what you're capable of doing. And it's a defense system. Our body has a defense system within ourselves. We compensate with skills to put other things to one side so that the diamond can be seen, because it's hidden, you see. It's called a hidden talent. And hidden talent always emerges as the greatest of all time, because people disregard things sometimes because they can't see, or that they don't take time to see. If someone's stuttering, they haven't got time to sit there to listen to what they've got to say, but spend some time and listen to what that person's got to say. Listen to them.
Yeah.
Never, ever underestimate.
And tell me, on the other side of that roller coaster, I mean, we've heard about your life story, so I don't know how you're going to pick one. But what was your highest moment on that roller coaster? What would you say has been the greatest high?
The highest moment is when I suppose my MBE and the Queen, and when I went to Chelsea Flower Show and stole the whole show. I didn't mean to.
I bet you did.
I didn't mean to. I just went there and put on a little display of my work. And Birmingham won the gold medal for the 5th year running.
Oh, my God.
Princess Anne came up to me and told me she's come especially to see me.
Oh.
Now, how nice is that? And you get all the royalty, Beatrix and Eugene, and they all came round my stand because I did a little exhibition, and there was a big needle covered in flowers and a few things. And there I was. And that was a great moment for me. And also when I received my doctorate at Warwick University, I remember standing on the stage with my gown. And I remember how the Scarecrow felt in The Wizard of Oz, because they gave him a brain and they gave me one as well.
Gosh.
So that was a great moment for me. And also, a gentleman by the name of Joe Egan is a boxer. He used to spar with Mike Tyson, big Irish guy, came into my exhibition and he said, I've never seen anything like it in my life. Mike Tyson couldn't knock me out, but your work did.
How have you had a life like this? This is unbelievable.
Well, you see, Joe Egan, right, was sparred with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson hit him with everything, the kitchen sink, the whole lot, but never knocked him out. But he says, my work did. So that was a great compliment coming from a fighter. So I feel so charged with encouragement.
Yeah.
Charged right up to my eyeballs with encouragement. I look in the mirror and encouragement comes out of my ears, my eyes, my mouth, my nose, because people have been giving me so much compliments and encouragement. And my work doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to the public, the people of the UK, the people of the world. I've got an exhibition on now, which is a permanent exhibition. It's called the Birmingham Contemporary Art Gallery, which is showcasing 25 of my best microscopic sculptures. I have something in there that's going to shock the world when they see it, but I'm not going to say what it is. So I have the exhibition on now, but I'm working on the Pied Piper. I'm going to make people think I'm an alien when I finish that. You could call me an alien if you want to.
Tell me, Willard, you have decided just to say some words to your younger self, because this is normally the point of the podcast where we ask those who have been interviewed just to think about their younger selves and to reflect and maybe give some wise words. And it's that moment also, I mean, I don't know what you would say that you haven't said in this podcast, because I think I've never heard so many profound statements that will stay with me. Would that be possible, that you could talk to the young Willard?
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to talk to the young Willard, number one, I'd say to the young Willard, look through a tunnel, and at the end of it, have a look at where you're going to end up. Because at the end of it, there's not just a pot of gold, there's a successful journey that you are going to reach. I know, Willard, that you can't read and you can't write, but you've been given a gift by God. God has given you a gift, right? Try not to let anybody tell you you cannot be what you're going to become, because you are going to be the greatest. And the word the greatest is a good word to use to encourage people. Cassius Clay used to say, I am the greatest, while he was boxing, and he became that. People thought it was a boast, but it's just a motivation to say, I am the best. Tyson Fury says, I am the best. I will win. So what I'm saying to you, Willard, is that you are going to be the best. You are the bestest. You are going to make the world see these little sculptures that you're making, how big you're going to become. I want you to ignore what the teacher says, because you have a condition that can't be changed. But that condition, flip over the coin, and then you're going to see the glory. And not only that, you are a diamond. And that diamond was in the dustbin, but it's going to come out. And when it comes out, they won't see anything as bright as how you're going to shine, because you are underestimation. You are the greatest micro artist of all time. You are the best. You will create the smallest sculptures ever made by man, by hand, not by machine. You are the best. And my head will be straight towards that tunnel. Don't look outside the tunnel, follow it, and at the end you'll see something that says the dream. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to make your dream a reality. You are the best. Nobody can beat you. You are the best. That's what I'd say to myself.
I think about that 5-year-old in the shed making his ant homes so that the ants were safe and the ants were cared for and the little ants had places to go. And I look at the man that you are and this huge heart that you obviously have.
Thank you.
And your glorious mother, who must be just with little words, still so proud of you, looking down at you with probably a slight smile, but with this huge pride burning in her chest. And to everybody who's listened today, it's been extraordinary. It will be with me till the day I go. And I'm just so glad that you exist. That's all I can say. It's extraordinary.
Thank you. And the thing is, Ollie, The bad news is I'm getting greater.
Yeah, well.
People haven't seen the best of me yet, because talking to you has enlightened me as well. You know, being able to share my story has made me realise how much love is out there for my work, and for people to appreciate me and know the real me, because you're the only person that's really brought out most of me, because some of it was just in reserve. But you brought out a lot of me, and I hope people can be inspired by what they've heard, and believe in themselves. And the word "can't" doesn't exist, but there are people that can do things in this world that people never believe.
You're going to kill me off, honestly. I've got to do a whole day's work, and yet I just want to cry my eyes out at this point in time. You've just inspired me to the point that I cannot even cope with it all. Oh, thank you. Everyone go and see your exhibition. Please don't you be sad or happy tears, whatever those are, because... To crikey, I've just never experienced anything like it, and I feel so frigging honoured. We're going to take away your words. We're going to remember that boy. We're going to think about our tunnel. You've articulated creativity in a way that no one I've ever spoken to has done that. And your eloquence in how you describe things is nothing short of a miracle.
Thank you.
And how do you look so frigging good at 60? What are you, 60?
64, I reckon.
I mean, what? That's unfair. Do you know what I mean? That's unfair. You can't have a gift like you and get to look like you as well at 64, because I think you look like you've got another 50 years.
I think it's because I keep holding my breath, you know. I think it's that.
Yeah, oh, yes.
You know.
You're like, and yes, exactly. Your cells aren't renewing because you're holding your breath for so long.
It could be something like, I mean, I don't quite know what it is, really. I think it's because I don't worry about much things. I don't allow things to worry me too much, you know what I mean? See, what it is, Ollie, I have this tunnel vision, and I just believe everything's going to be good. You know what I mean? During lockdown, I just got my head down and just started to create work, better work. So, you know, my mum would say, never get bitter, get better.
What was she eating that she could come out with such wisdom? I mean, it's ridiculous. I've never just, you know.
She'd say all things, but if you didn't behave yourself and you didn't listen, she'd say, if your ears don't hear it, your backside's going to feel it.
Oh, God. Just so. Willard, I am going to remember this moment. I hope one day we're going to meet in person.
Yeah, come to my exhibition, Holly. I'd love to meet you in person.
I would love.
I'd like to say to the listeners, my exhibition is there permanently. It's at the Birmingham Contemporary Art Gallery. It's a beautiful building, big glass building. And I've got 25 microscopes there. Beautifully made microscopes, and I'd just like to give a big shout out to a gentleman by the name of Mike Haynes, who suffered 2 heart attacks, suffered cancer, suffered everything else, went to heaven. Jesus told him it wasn't his time yet, and he came back down, and he's still living, and he's a tremendous person. I am really, really happy with my journey, and it's still continuing. They have not seen nothing yet, because my work is still too big, as far as I'm concerned. That's my mother's words.
The best interview, Willard. Thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for inspiring us. And I will certainly see you at your exhibition.
Thank you, Holly. God bless.
Before you go, don't forget to head to holly.co to be in with a chance of winning a brand new Dell Technologies XPS laptop and a whole host of other goodies. And if you've enjoyed this episode, if it's helped you along your journey or inspired you, would you mind rating and reviewing? Your support means the world to me. It really does spread the word and will help inspire even more people to build a life they love. And if you want to hear all our latest news, you can sign up to my weekly newsletter, Holly's Desk Notes, over at holly.co.